We've learned that it's not just a question of energy generation, although we've got at least a half a dozen additional options which can be spread over our near to long future. But we've also learned that it's transmission of energy, it's making connections, that is ultimately going to be really important. Not only is making connections important, but across these options, we've got to see complementarity. All these wonderful C words tell out of the talks of my predecessors, and I've got a third one for you. We not only need to make connections, we need to seek complementarity, we really need to do it through cooperation. It needs to be a cooperation amongst these kind of experts, amongst all of us as citizens, and as Eva said, it needs to be the cooperation across the Atlantic provinces, and goodness, we're going to have to reach up into Quebec and down into New England. This is going to take big time cooperation. Now, in the last few months, I think most of you would agree with me, we haven't heard much about cooperation, but we've generated a lot of wind. I think the potential for New Brunswick Eve has already been demonstrated. I hadn't thought about the Saudi Arabia connection. Seriously, folks, and I'm speaking now out of some of the expertise I've shared with students over 40 years. We do not make our most reliable decisions by grabbing onto a singular position and holding tight. We make our most reliable decisions comparatively. We can be effective when we judge, and we can only be effective when we make judgments about which alternatives are better, rather than pretending we know what's best. But that requires clearly enunciated alternatives. We're not reliable when we attempt to justify one position all by itself. Now, everyone does seem to agree, everyone agrees across New Brunswick, and I think this morning that status quo is not an alternative. That's not an option. There's nothing we need more, therefore, than other alternatives to be thinking about. The government has tabled one option to the status quo, revised it, but so far the paper that's put on the table has been laid face down. I haven't seen all the details. We need clearly enunciated options if we're to make our best judgment on how to position ourselves in the future. And I, for one, am deeply grateful to the organizers of the summit for recognizing that a fruitful debate on this matter desperately needs alternatives to consider. And my thanks to each of you this morning for placing your best judgment on the table, face up, for all of us to consider. Your options pave the way for the only responsible way forward and the only reliable way to make this important decision. And as you've heard, it's going to require seeking out complementarity, establishing connections, and finding some cooperation. Thank you.